And now I have been graced with the honor of introducing our speaker, former U.S. Ambassador to South Africa, winner of the Order of Good Hope, which is the highest honor the Republic of South Africa bestows on a citizen of another country, professor and chairman of the Board of Directors of the Louisiana Disaster Recovery Foundation. It is my pleasure to present American diplomat James A. Joseph.
A high school commencement speech reminds me of an experience I had when I was in the South Pacific to swear in the governors of one of the American territories. After the swearing in, I was invited to address a joint session of the legislature. And just before I was scheduled to speak, I leaned over to the speaker and said, "Mr. Speaker, how long do I have?" And he said, "Mr. Undersecretary, you are our guest. You may speak as long as you wish, but I hope that someone told you that in about 8 to 10 minutes, the lights are scheduled to go off across the island." That sounds sort of like the advice that I was given by your class sponsors. Let me first congratulate the class of 2014. It must feel awesome to know that when you leave here today, you will be free to follow your star. But I hope that you will remember not just what you learned at Wooten, but the values that were affirmed and the vision you developed. I also want to congratulate your parents, without whose support the joys of this moment might not be possible. I attended a very small high school. It was not as distinguished as Thomas Sprague Wooten. But like you, I had great teachers and I had great dreams. So I want to congratulate your teachers and administrators as well. You have every right to be proud that your school has been ranked twice as a Blue Ribbon School of Excellence. You have every right to be proud that your school has been consistently included in the top tier among the Washington Post's top 100 schools. So when I accepted your invitation to speak to you today, I thought about what in my life story, what in my journey from high school to this moment might provide insights helpful for the journey you begin today. The first is something I learned from my high school history teacher. It was the notion that the American society is never fixed nor final. We are a nation that is always in the making. Many of your elders are concerned and perplexed about demographic and other changes that have caused great anxiety. Some look at difference and they want to homogenize it to fit their comfort zone. Others fail to understand that the more diverse we are, the richer our culture becomes, and the more expansive our horizon of possibilities. And it is here that you have an advantage. You already know from your experience at Wooten that diversity need not divide. You already know that pluralism, rightly understood and rightly practiced, is a benefit and not a burden. you already know that the fear of difference is a fear of the future. So while other commencement speakers will be telling graduates around the country what they need to learn as they face the challenges of a badly divided world, I prefer to call attention to what we can learn from you. What your generation can teach us about accepting and learning to appreciate diversity, about how to follow through on our commitment to forming a more perfect union. The world you are inheriting today is fundamentally different in so many ways from what I inherited more than a half-century ago. Mine was a rigidly segregated world. Yours is a world that is integrating and fragmenting at the very same time. The more interdependent we become, the more people are turning inward to smaller communities of meaning and memory. But while some see this as cause for great anxiety, it may be that the first stage of the search for common ground is the search for beginnings, a respect for our different heritages in order to shape a common future. Some years ago, I met a man named Howard Thurman, who had been a mentor to Martin Luther King. He was a mystic, a poet, and a theologian who was fond of saying, "I want to be me without making it difficult for you to be you." And that is the message I hope you will take to those who would limit their embrace, to those who look like them, act like them, and think like them. I want you to imagine how different our world would be if more Americans were able to say, "I want to be an American," without making it difficult for an African to be an African, an Asian to be an Asian, or a Latina to be a Latina. I want you to imagine what our communities and neighborhoods would look like if more Christians were able to say, "I want to be a Christian," without making it difficult for a Jew to be a Jew, a Muslim to be a Muslim, or a Buddhist to be a Buddhist. I hope that when the glow of this ceremony is beginning to fade and you are settled into the comforts and challenges of life, you will remember that on your day of graduation there was this speaker who reminded you that while we are a nation of individuals, a community of communities, our democracy will work best when more Americans are able to say, "I want to be me," without making it difficult for you to be you. A second important lesson comes from something I learned from South Africa about building a community out of our diversity. In that beautiful country, with its badly divided past, there is a concept of community that is best expressed by a Xhosa proverb: "People are people through other people." It is what led Nelson Mandela to say, "If I deny your dignity, I am denying my own. If I diminish your humanity, I am diminishing my own." It is this sense of what it means to be human that led him to say, not "I am, I think, therefore I am," but "I am because you are." He understood that a nation is stronger when all of its citizens are empowered to do their best and to lead with their strength. As I was about to complete my tour as the United States ambassador, I was asked how I felt about leaving a position with the challenges, the drama, and the glamour of being a personal representative of the President of the United States. To which I replied, I will be returning to the most honored title and the most noble status in a democracy. It is that of citizen. So the next thing I want to say is that what I learned about the need to balance the pursuit of a profession with the calling of citizenship. Some of you will go on to careers in medicine. Some of you may go on to master the machineries that keep our society functioning. Some of you may go on to careers in finance and business. Others of you may go to work to make our communities safe and our neighborhoods stable. But it is your life as citizens that concern me today. The ancient historian Tacitus described patriotism as praiseworthy competition with one's ancestors. I recall that definition of civic virtue today to remind you that each generation has an opportunity, indeed an obligation, to contribute something as meaningful, as significant, and even as extraordinary as the generations that preceded them. I recall it to remind you that when neighbors help neighbors, and even when strangers help strangers, both those who help and those who are helped are transformed. I recall it today to remind you that when you help someone who is homeless to find a home, when you help someone who is hungry to find food, when you help to fight bigotry against a classmate or a neighbor, you are engaged in the most noble vocation of them all. You are helping to form a more perfect union. So as you make your way in a world that is more diverse, and if you remember anything I have said, I hope you remember two things. One, that forming a more perfect union begins with being able to say, I want to be me without making it difficult for you to be you. And secondly, the need to balance the pursuit of a profession with the calling of citizenship. The Greek mathematician Archimedes once said, give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. As graduates of Wooten, you have been given the lever. Now go out and move the world.